Hey everybody, welcome back to another Volkswagen restoration part. In this part we will be prepping and priming the entire interior with the epoxy primer finally. So stay tuned and watch how I did it. Well, the sand down has started. You can see here's the seat back, that's getting there. Almost done with this. And, you know, jams, sanding that all back down, seat frames and stuff. So just to give an idea what I'm using for sanding. For the interior, a lot of it, the heavy lifting is on the grinder here. I've got it set up with a mild steel brush wire wheel, and then this for any flat sections that I have to do. This is a bristle disc. It's a 120. They make these in 80 and I think 50, and they're different colors. So white is the 120 and I think the 80 is green. So if you're really stripping down lacquer from the very beginning, lacquer is probably the hardest stuff to get off. The actual yellow German lacquer, the original paint. And this, you know, so I would, if you have a car with very thick paint, like maybe it's been resprayed over the lacquer, probably get the green wheels, which are the 50 grit versions of these. And yeah, this one, since like I said, I've done most of the sanding on the exterior and interior, this is just fine to like take off the remaining. And then once I'm done with this, I'll move on to 120, I think it's 120 grit. I've got a short block and a long block, so I'll just finish it up with that. The interior, that's going to be it. That's going to be enough for the interior. See all these pieces, you know, that, and at this point I have bristle discs. That's hard to say 5 times fast. Bristle disc and wire wheeled this stuff, and so it's pretty well, you know, either down to the original primer or bare metal. Pretty much everywhere. So I'll do that as good as I can. Now on the interior, I'm also not as concerned, you know, I'm not as concerned of getting it completely perfectly down to bare metal perfect, because I'm just trying to get the best mechanical adhesion. So as long as I get it mostly down to the metal where I'm going to be where it's going to be exposed, that's fine. Other areas I mentioned before, I'm not even going to bother with. This is all going to be hidden. So yeah, although I may spray it a little bit, I don't care about some of those areas. I'm more concerned about the areas that actually you can see once the dash is on. Now, speaking as well to some interior parts that may not be perfect or may not even be possible to really get down to bare metal or sand well, is this back area here, where it's just going to be extremely difficult to get up into there. So another way I could do this is I'll wire brush this as well as I can, you know, the mechanisms and things like that, clean them really well, but to actually help with the physical adhesion of the epoxy primer over parts that I just simply can't get the lacquer off, I might spray, or I will probably spray a little bit of this product. And this is U-POL Grip number 4. It's a universal adhesion promoter, and that's the model number there. This is what I'll probably use up in these areas just to help with places where I need adhesion. Again, not in the dashboard where it's going to be covered, I don't care, but those type of areas, this product will help out with that. Now when I go to do the exterior, like I said, I want to spend more time on the exterior making sure that it's surfaced really well, because again, the exterior paint it's more important, it's the most important to have the best physical and chemical adhesion, because of, like I said, it's where the rain and the weather and the UV light and everything hits the hardest. So the exterior, I'm going to be more careful and just more diligent. I bought this tool here. This is a surface conditioning tool. You've seen these probably before. Eastwood sells a very similar model. I got this at Harbor Freight. And I also got an extra drum 120 grit. And I think this one comes with 2 drums, a 40 grit stripping and a 120 grit, so I'll have two. I probably won't need the 40 because like I've done most of the sanding of the lacquer on most every panel pretty well, so I really just need to take off the primer. I don't want to be too aggressive on these panels since I've been sanding them, so I'll probably just stick to the 120 grit there. Again, long board to finish that off as well, and manually or any areas that this drum just simply can't get to. But I won't use this on the interior at all. There's just no real places that are flat and long enough. Maybe in here if I needed to, but I'm just gonna spray over the Pore 15 for there. But there's nowhere I really need to use this flat tool. I think it's just all gonna be mostly exterior, roof, and all that. And I appreciate you helping me buy this because my channel is monetized. I don't make a lot of money with the small subscriber base that I have, but I was able to buy this tool, so I appreciate you guys watching my videos. And maybe I'll do a little bit of a review on this. You'll at least see how effective it is. So I'll film a little bit of that when I get to the outside. But what I'm going to try to get done near term is finish the inside sanding and try to get this primed up at least. Well, it's still going to rain all day, so I've been indoors, and you probably hear a lot of noise going on. I've got my fan wall blowing, at least this one going, and I've already probably dirtied up a filter, but that's okay. I got a bunch of these 20 by 20 by 1 cheap filters. They're like a couple bucks a piece, no big deal. I think I'm finished sanding. I just got done with the detail sander, that little guy right there, along with my 90-degree sander and just everything. Throwing the kitchen sink at this, and this is kind of where I'm at. I've basically sprayed it off with air, but I haven't wiped it down or solvent prepped it. But that's where I think I need to be. Now you might still see that there's quite a bit there's some yellow showing. And again, I don't want to be a broken record about how much detail I need to do when taking off or stripping the paint, but my feeling is that there's two kind of factors that I decide on to see how much time I'm going to spend stripping paint, and those two different factors are: one, what's the condition of the piece? Was it already did I already have it? Is this a new welded section? Is it already clean metal? And in that case, I don't need to worry about it too much. Or is it what did I already go through the trouble of Pore 15ing that area, which means I did prep it pretty well, and we've got a Pore 15 layer in between it. Or is it rusty, and do I need to really go hard on that piece and get it down to bare metal? So that's the number one, is what's the condition of the piece. The second consideration is, where is the piece located, right? Notice that that's yellow. I left a lot of the lacquer on there, and that's because I'm probably going to have panels over those sides. So do I really need to get hardcore into there and get everything down to metal? No, it's going to be covered by a panel. Or maybe, the roof section up here where I really got it down, the lacquer down, I just remember doing that. So I just conditioned the primer a little bit with the wheel, and just if the primer stuck after that, fine. That's going to be okay. I think I've exposed metal in almost every place. You see very little yellow in areas that are not going to be covered. And again, in those areas up there, I'll be spraying a little bit of that U-Pull adhesive enhancement, because again, it's almost impossible to get into there really well without taking it all apart. All right, here's where I'm at. I'm about to suit up and get some priming done on the inside here. I got the gun put together. I went ahead and put the oil and water separator after the swivel, so hopefully that'll be fine. But I bought this system for this thing where you put this adapter on, and then you can use these cups with these liners. So I could basically just mix my paint right in the cup, put this special cap on it. It's pre-filtered. I probably don't even need to filter it. It's got this filter thing on it. You put the cap on, you put the collar on, and then it snaps just right into your gun, so that there's no cleanup. You just take this off and you can throw it out and just replace it with a different one. So I think that's going to help me a lot, because I'm going to have to do a lot of painting and switching up. So I'm gonna mix that paint. It's 1-to-1, so 1-to-1 is the easiest thing. If this is a 600 milliliter container, simply fill the paint to 300 and then put the rest of the part B, or the activator, and then fill it up to 600 and then mix it with a stick, and you're done. So couldn't be easier. I'm gonna go ahead and mix up that primer, and then I'll show you what I've done on the car here. So basically what's left to do, I've just finished the solvent cleaner, so I'm going to suit up and just tack cloth it right before I go to spray it, and then spray a little bit of this adhesive promoter on a few of those areas that I mentioned. Basically what I've done up until this point was Scotch-Brite all the port 15 surfaces to scratch them up. Obviously I finished sanding and wire wheeling all the surfaces and getting the paint conditioned and prepped. Then I washed everything, because this, especially these flat surfaces, have been just coated with junk. So washed it with soapy water, then rinsed it and dried. There's probably a couple iterations of toweling off, cleaning it. And then once I got it fairly clean, then I went over the whole thing with degreaser, with a Scotch-Brite pad, everything with the Zep degreaser, wipe that all off, and then finally that solvent prep, and then right before I paint, like I said, I'll just wipe things down with tack cloths, and then I'll spray. So that's what's going to happen, and I don't really want to record in here because I don't want to overspray the lens on my camera. So the next shot I'll show you will be the finish reveal. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, it's the next day. It was a really long day yesterday. I probably worked about 12 hours. It was exhausting. By the time I got this gun broken down and cleaned out, it was about 9 p.m. It was dark outside. So just to give you an idea of how long of a day that was for me. As you can see by the chaos in this workshop, a lot went down yesterday, and I'm going to kind of show you the primed inside of the car and the result, and we'll go over what went well and what didn't go so well. All right, well, here's the car. It's white. Yeah, so just a bit about what went well and what didn't go well. So one of the issues I had was runs in the paint, and there's lots of runs everywhere, especially in this back part where I started. One thing I need to learn to do when I paint is to confidently, kind of like welding too, confidently squeeze that trigger to let the product out. And squeeze and move, squeeze and move. Sometimes I just kind of feather it to where I hear the air, but it's just kind of going tss, and and then it wouldn't paint, and then I wouldn't. But I need to be confidently squeezing that trigger all the way down and moving. And so that's one thing I noticed while I was doing it, and I got better, but I will improve on that as I go. The other issue I had is that I bit off more than I can chew, I think, in multiple ways. I think number one, I bit off more than I can chew by trying to do the entire interior in one shot. And the interior is difficult, and I think it's going to be I think this is a lot more difficult than the exterior, because you just have to get inside of different places, and there's so many nooks and crannies and little things. It's just really difficult, and there's a lot of movement involved. And one of the things I guess the basic thing I didn't do right is I rushed, right? I had my goal. I wanted to get it all done, and the whole interior done yesterday, and I shouldn't have. I should have broken this out into at least a couple different sprays, and I wouldn't have had the kind of issues I had. Because the other thing I had was issues where the hose would keep touching the wet paint. I think you can see here, especially like right here, where it's like missing primer, is because you know, I get in here with the hose and I'd hit the hose against the seats or whatever. So I didn't plan out the strategy really well. Like, what should I paint first? Where should I stand? Where should I move around? You know, and just basically coming up with a better strategy. My strategy was to start at the back, start painting back there, come around in here, paint the rest of this, and kind of move around. But yeah, it just, there were issues with that. When I go to paint, the one thing I learned from priming the interior is, yeah, like I said, don't do this all in one shot. Because it's difficult to start painting there and then get this all done. And then you got to try to reach up to there from the inside to paint that. Well, now that's all wet right there. So if I put my foot against it, I've ruined it. You know what I mean? You're thinking through those type of things. So I bit off more than I can chew, and I end up, you know, kind of rushing on some things. Even little things, like I forgot to put the little hose sock, that plastic bag around my hose and things. I mean, just little things like that. If I just would have slowed down and paced myself, and you know, I would have been a lot better. So when I go to paint, do the actual painting in the interior, I will probably do this in at least 2 sections, if not 3. So maybe do the rear part, then come back and do the mid part here to the back of the seat, and then let that dry, and then come back and do the fronts around here. That way, when I bring my hose through here to do the front part, I don't have to worry about any of this stuff being wet paint. So I'm gonna do a lot better and really take my time when I go to paint. But yeah, the good news is I'm learning all this stuff while doing primer. So the bad thing is I just have to do a little more sanding in the inside than I'd hoped. But hey, it's worth it for that lesson. So that didn't go well. The other thing that didn't go well is, well, let me put some positive stuff on there. This went well. This worked. I'm glad that my paint booth worked. I didn't have my other fan to put down in the back. I did leave the door kind of up about a foot, but I didn't have another fan to go out there. So I'm definitely gonna go find that fan. I don't know where it is. I think it might be in the storage. So I'm gonna find that fan so that next time I do it, I'll have more airflow. But these filters kind of failed on me, and somebody else on YouTube did a similar situation. Do you see how you could these cheaper filters that don't have the pleats? You can almost see the fan. These have so much more airflow than these pleated ones, and these are the cheap pleated ones, so I thought they'd be fine. But it turns out, no, get the cheapest non-pleated filters, and you get a lot more airflow. That said, this did work. It just took a little extra time to clear out. It did get a little hazy in here, and it took a little extra time because of these filters. So that extra fan and these filters, I think, will do a world of good next time I go to spray in here. That's the good news. Now I'll talk a little bit about some of the things I learned when mixing the primer. When mixing the primer, something that did not go right is, and you can probably see what an absolute mess I've made of my workstation here. One of the things that didn't go right, and maybe you guys can leave comments if you know something that can solve this problem, but it's just this. First of all, I didn't realize that when buying automotive paint in these gallons, when it has this plastic ring on it, I didn't realize that this plastic ring is instrumental in keeping the lid on. I took the plastic ring off and I started to shake the can, because the can still has like a normal type, lid that like a normal gallon paint can would have. But this apparently, it's not sealed very well on purpose. I guess, I don't know why, but there's a reason for it, I'm sure. So I shook it with this, and some paint started spurted out a little bit on me and on the floor and everywhere. So I made a mess, and I realized that this, when I took my paint key and I pulled the lid off, all you have to do is take the paint key and it just lifts right off. So these aren't put on hard like normal paint cans. You need this on there before you start shaking the can, which I did have to do. This stuff is is not what comes apart really easily. Of course, I don't have a paint mix or a shaker or whatever you call those. So I had to, once I figured out that you needed that ring on there, I put that ring back on, and I really just, I probably took all my arm strength to really shake that can really well. And then once I was able to open it up, I then stirred it with a mixing stick. But yeah, just stirring it doesn't work. You've got to shake that, and you got to shake it hard, and it will take all your strength. So again, that goes back to the whole biting off more than I could chew. I took the whole day sanding, and then once I got to this, my arms are already tired. Then I just wear my arms completely out, and then I got to go hold up a paint gun and spray that. I noticed my shoulders were burning and fatigued by the end. So yeah, that's not great. But yeah, you've got to shake those cans in order to mix that paint. Then I noticed that on this kit here, which I really liked, I probably won't use these after I'm done with that, with the 30, you know, I don't know, about 10 more pieces of these. Just, it's kind of a waste. Also, it's got the mixing stuff on here, which I may use, but for one-to-one mixing, and I think I showed you before, all you do is, it's easy, it's just one-to-one mixing. This, weirdly enough, at one point right here on the lid, there was a measurement of the milliliters, and so a little scale on here, so I could just pour to 300, pour to 600 like I showed earlier. And when I used the lacquer thinner to clean this off, it took off just that scale there, but none of the other mixing things. It doesn't make any sense. So I still had to use my normal mixing cups in order to use that, you know, to pour these two things in and mix to 600 milliliters, then I could pour it into here. So I still end up having to use these cups. It was just bizarre. But I do like this system. It is pretty cool, because once you're done, you just pull this out. You can have a bunch of them like pre-mixed, and you just pull one out, put the next one in, boom, on the gun, and you're ready to go. So I do think that's pretty cool. So when I go to do, and now that I know kind of how many, I think I used, what did I use? 3 of these? I'll have to count my trash. I don't think 4. I think it was 3, but I may be wrong. It may have been 4. But anyway, I can pre-mix those, at least like say 3 or 4 of these when I go to do the outside, because the outside is going to require more material. I could have these all pre-mixed in these containers here, and then just have them lined up here. So when I could just come in, stick the new one in, and ready to go. So yeah, I do like that. But after I'm done painting this thing, I probably won't buy any more. It's kind of a waste. That's really the biggest challenge I had, was just I can't keep this clean. Also pouring it, I tried to use a pouring lid. This one didn't get on there quite right. I had a little pouring thing you can snap on there, but it made even more of a mess. So in the end, I just took this off and poured it and got it all over the side of the can. If any of you guys know of a good mechanism for doing 1-gallon cans, I've seen professional auto shops with these type of lids where they can pour it off, you know, where these stay on and they can pour it out of that. But I don't know where, you know, I just need to look online, I guess, because they don't have anything locally. So the other thing is, this stuff, when you pour it, it splashes big time. So I had activator splashed all over as well. So again, if there's some kind of nozzle that can go on here that prevents splashing, you know, I'd love to know about it. I also bought an extra can of reducer. Now this epoxy primer doesn't need reducer. It's just 2 parts, paint and activator. I guess the activator probably has reducer in it, but the paint that I use, the single stage paint that I will be using, does have a reducer. I bought an extra thing of reducer. You can get this at any auto parts store. And what I'll do with this is, now that I've broken down and cleaned everything with lacquer thinner, and I just have this cheap Harbor Freight gun cleaning set, you know, to clean out all, you know, the things. as well as this gun cleaning spray to spray it all out. So the gun's taken apart, everything's been cleaned inside there and you know, brushed off, and all the parts were soaked in lacquer thinner for about 10, 15, 20 minutes. And I'll just put it back together. Well, after I put it back together, what I'll probably do is between the next time I spray, what I'll do is I'll put some lacquer thinner, or some of that reducer in here, and I'll spray that through the gun just to make sure that, you know, it's all kind of cleaned out and there's no more residue of lacquer thinner in there. So yeah, using a little bit of extra reducer. The other thing is if you run out of reducer for your actual paint setup, you'll have some spare reducer. And Duplicolor makes this stuff called specialty reducer, which is for all temperature conditions. So I think you could probably mix this with any of the slow or medium hardeners or reducers that you get. Yeah, so today I'm probably just going to clean up my workshop and just reorganize it all and make it ready for the next time I go to prime up, which will probably be the doors and hatches. I'll probably just do those in the next video, and then finally we'll finish the outside of the bus. So I'm looking forward to more videos and more progress, and thanks for joining me on this journey. Talk to you next time.